My name is George Leacock. I'm resident in Scarborough since after Hurricane Flora. I was born in Mount Grace. The house was damaged, and we moved on to Burnett Street in Scarborough and then up to Coiler Street where we are now, and I've been resident here in Scarborough since. Efforts to improve the aesthetic of Scarborough are probably as old as Scarborough itself. We've always had beautification committees and all of that. I know my father sat on one, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. Persons who own properties in Scarborough will probably willingly develop and improve the appearance of their businesses and so on if there is business activity going on. You can't have a city if nobody lives there. You must have human traffic, and that human traffic is driven by things like the market. In this era where persons are doing things online and all of that, you have to ensure that you continue to have attractors to the city, and not just the transient attractors that would come from cruise ships or anything of the sort, but you must have people who live in the immediate vicinity who expect that this is the area where they'd come forward to make use of purchases, to buy services and things of that nature. But at the end of the day is that the aesthetic is to be recognized, and it is to be included in the ideas that you have moving forward. I hold no track for Victoria, and sometimes we seem to have too much of an obsession with the preservation of Victorian type structures. I understand the importance of preserving our built history, but I also understand that in 2022, there are young architects in Tobago with creative ideas who need to be allowed an opportunity. And in 200 years' time, we should be able to say, well, what was the aesthetic of this time? What were architects in 2022 doing? If you go to the top of Burnett Hill, where the government PRDI building that was designed by the brilliant Peter Phillips is, you would notice that on the other side of the road, the private sector, sports and games, followed suit and tried to stay within the same kind of design thing. And if you stand on Main Street and you look, you'll recognize that the roof of the PRDI practically continues in shape onto the roof of sports and games, and continues in shape onto the roof of Unit Trust, so that it looks as though the architects, while maybe not formally colluding, were looking at each other. So you have a kind of aesthetic developed. Remember that the aesthetic is linked to the culture. I grew up in Scarborough, catching and cooking and eating crayfish in Cooks River, in Hamilton Street Gully, catching million color fishes and keeping them in a bottle home till the poor things died. But when you talk about treating with development, our tendency has always historically to lean towards concrete and glass and all that kind of stuff. And from my perspective, there needs to be a balance between preservation and innovation, a balance between urbanity and residential, so that persons should actually live here and make use of the services that are presented in Scarborough. The physical infrastructural works will always come, but in the first instance, it's my view that the proper philosophical background to the activity is what is required to be established.